At Christmas dinner, my mother raised her champagne glass and announced to the entire table, "Sienna's promotion to VP was incredible, so proud. Maya, when are you finally going to make something of yourself?" The room erupted in polite laughter. My father focused intensely on slicing the ham like it required surgical precision. Sienna sat perfectly still, her smile frozen, watching me with eyes that knew exactly what was coming. I set down my fork slowly. "I already did," I said. 3 months ago. You all got the invitations to my book launch." The laughter died so fast it felt like someone had unplugged the room. My mother's smile cracked. "What are you talking about? We never received any invitations." So I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. "That's strange," I said, "because I have proof that you did." And in that moment, 15 years of being invisible finally came into focus. Growing up, I learned that families have hierarchies. Some children are showcased, others are scenery. Sienna was the former. I was decidedly the latter. It wasn't dramatic. There were no screaming matches or obvious cruelty. It was subtler than that, more insidious. When Sienna made honor roll, we went out to dinner at the nicest restaurant in town. When I won the regional writing competition in 8th grade, my mother said congratulations while scrolling through photos of Sienna's dance recital. When Sienna got into Cornell, my parents threw a party with 50 guests and a custom cake. When I got into Boston University with a full scholarship, my mother asked if I could delay my acceptance letter photo because the lighting wasn't good and she needed to post Sienna's college decision video first. I didn't fight it. I adapted. I became excellent at being small, at celebrating other people's victories, at making my achievements quiet enough not to compete with Sienna's spotlight. By the time I was 25, I'd perfected the art of invisible success. Boston changed everything. Moving 4 hours away wasn't an act of rebellion. It was survival. I built a life there that made sense to me. A small apartment in Cambridge with morning light that hit the kitchen table perfectly. Stacks of manuscript pages everywhere. A teaching position at a community college that paid barely enough but mattered deeply. And Marcus saw me in ways my family never bothered to attempt. He asked questions and waited for real answers. He remembered details. His family was different too. When his mother Helen hugged me the first time, she held on like she meant it. She asked about my students. She remembered their names. His father Robert kept a copy of the literary journal that published my first short story on his coffee table and actually read it. They weren't perfect, but they were present. That was revolutionary. When my novel sold to a publisher after 7 years of rejection letters, Marcus took me to dinner and cried. Actual tears. He'd watched me wake up at 5 in the morning to write before teaching. He'd held me through dozens of rejection emails. He'd believed in something my own family never acknowledged existed. The book was modest, a small literary press, no big advance, but it was mine, my name on a cover, my words in the world. The launch event was scheduled for September 15th at a bookstore in Cambridge. Intimate, meaningful, the people who actually knew me. But there was still that stubborn, painful part of me that wanted my family there. That needed them to witness this one thing. So I designed formal invitations, printed on heavy cardstock, mailed them, certified mail, signature required, because I knew my family's pattern of conveniently misplacing things that didn't center Sienna. I checked the tracking obsessively. All 4 showed delivered. All 4 showed signed for. Then came the silence. No congratulations text. No phone call. Not even a generic good luck in the family group chat. I told myself stories. Maybe they were planning to surprise me. Maybe they were waiting until closer to the date. Maybe the mail system made an error despite the signatures. The launch happened. 50 people came. Fellow writers, students, Marcus's family, friends, who'd watched me struggle through every draft. It was perfect. My family's absence was a knife I pretended not to feel. Weeks passed, then months. I tried reaching out. I called my mother twice. Both calls went to voicemail. I texted my father. He responded with, "We'll call later," which never materialized. The family group chat that had existed since college suddenly stopped showing my messages. I wasn't kicked out dramatically. I simply stopped existing in that space. One night in November, Marcus found me staring at my phone. "You okay?" he asked. I showed him the group chat. See? My last 3 messages just say sent, not delivered, not read. They're not going through, he frowned. That's not a technical glitch. Someone blocked you. The words landed like stones. He took my phone gently. Let me check something. He had access to account settings I didn't understand. Within minutes, he pulled up administrative logs for the family email account. Someone accessed these invitations, he said quietly, opened them, then deleted them permanently from everyone's inbox. Who has access to manage the family email? I already knew. Sienna. She'd been the family tech person since high school. Mom couldn't figure out her iPad without Sienna. Dad forwarded everything to Sienna to sort. Every piece of communication that went through that house filtered through my sister first, like a gatekeeper who decided what information was worthy of the kingdom's attention. But I needed more. I pulled up the certified mail tracking receipts, 4 packages, 4 signatures. I zoomed in on the signature field. The handwriting was unmistakable. Sienna's looping S, her distinctive way of crossing her T's. She'd signed for all 4 invitations and made sure no one else saw them. Marcus touched my shoulder. Why would she do this? I thought about the timeline. My book launch was September. Sienna's VP promotion announcement was scheduled for October. She'd been planning this massive celebration for months, renting out a restaurant, inviting executives, making it an event. My book launch, even small and literary, had the potential to take attention away from her moment. And Sienna had never, not once in 31 years, shared attention willingly. What do you want to do? Marcus asked. I stared at those signatures, at the proof of deliberate erasure. And I made a choice. Christmas was in 3 weeks. I was going. Christmas at my parents' house always looked like a catalog photo. White lights wound perfectly around the banister. A 14-foot tree decorated with ornaments my mother bought specifically because they photographed well. The dining table set like we were expecting royalty. I walked through the door on Christmas Eve, carrying nothing but my phone and the weight of 15 years of evidence. Sienna was already holding court by the fireplace, showing off photos of her new VP office to our aunts. My mother orchestrated everything like a conductor, making sure everyone noticed Sienna's success. My father poured drinks and stayed quiet, the way he always did. No one asked how I'd been. No one mentioned my teaching. No one said they'd heard I'd published a book. I might as well have been a guest they'd forgotten they invited. Dinner began with the usual performance. Praise for Sienna's promotion, her salary, her corner office with a view. Every sentence was a reminder that they'd shown up for her repeatedly, enthusiastically, while I'd published a book and they hadn't acknowledged it with a single text. Then my mother stood, raising her glass. Sienna's promotion to VP was incredible, she said, her voice warm and proud. So proud. She turned to me. Maya, when are you finally going to make something of yourself? The table chuckled. Cousins exchanged glances. My father's knife paused mid-slice. Sienna sat frozen, but her eyes were alert, watching. She knew. I set my fork down carefully. I already did, I said. My voice was steady. 3 months ago, September 15th. I published my first novel and had a launch event. You all got invitations. The room went silent, not the polite pause before someone changes the subject, the kind of silence that feels like a held breath. My mother blinked rapidly. What? We never got any invitations, Maya. Where would you even mail them? I figured you'd say that, I replied. I pulled out my phone. That's why I kept records. I pulled up the tracking receipts. 4 certified letters, all delivered to this address, all requiring signature on delivery. I turned the screen toward the table, all signed for on June 20th. My father leaned forward. By who? I zoomed in on the signature. The room could see it clearly now. Sienna's name in her own handwriting. My mother's face went pale. Sienna? What is this? Sienna's composure finally cracked. Her mouth opened, closed. I don't remember signing for anything. Maybe I grabbed the mail that day, but I didn't see any invitations. You didn't see 4 heavy cardstock envelopes with my name as the sender? I asked. My father stared at Sienna. You sign for mail all the time. You'd remember 4 packages. Sienna's voice rose. This is insane. Maya's trying to make me look bad like she always does. I never twist anything, I said calmly. But since we're here, let me show you something else. I pulled up the email logs Marcus had helped me access. In July, I sent an email to the family account with the book launch details. That email was opened on July 3rd at 2:18 p.m. from a device registered to Sienna, then permanently deleted from everyone's inbox 15 minutes later. My mother gasped. "Sienna, is this true?" Sienna stood abruptly. "Everyone always thinks I'm the problem." Maya disappears for years, barely talks to us, then shows up with accusations. "This is ridiculous." "I didn't disappear," I said quietly. "I was erased." I looked at my mother. "How many times did I call you this year?" My mother hesitated. "I'm not sure." "I called 6 times," I said. "You answered once. The other 5 went to voicemail. I texted Dad 9 times. He responded to 2. I sent messages in the family group chat every week for 3 months. They stopped delivering in August because someone blocked my number." My father's face darkened. "Who has administrative access to that group chat?" Everyone knew the answer. Sienna sat back down heavily. Her breathing was shallow. "Why would you do this?" my mother whispered. Sienna's eyes filled with tears, but her voice came out sharp. "Because everything is always about Maya. Poor Maya. So smart, so talented, so misunderstood. She doesn't need anything from anyone. She just exists and makes everyone else feel guilty." "For what?" I asked softly. "For celebrating my own life? For achieving something?" Sienna's voice cracked. "You got a book deal. You were supposed to be the quiet one, the one who didn't need attention. And then suddenly you have this accomplishment that people actually care about, and I'm supposed to just let you take my moment?" "Your moment?" I repeated. "The launch was in September. Your promotion party was October, a full month apart." "It didn't matter," Sienna said bitterly. "People would still talk about your book, at my party. They'd ask me if I'd read it, if I was proud. If our family was so accomplished, everything would still somehow come back to you. So you made sure no one knew," I said. Sienna looked away. My mother reached for Sienna's hand. "Sweetheart, this doesn't make sense. You've always had everything. We've always supported you." "That's the problem," I said. My voice was still calm, but something in my chest was breaking open. "You've always supported her. You've supported her so much that I became invisible. You threw her a party for Cornell. You took out an ad in the newspaper for her promotion. You posted 40 photos of her wedding. But I published a book after 7 years of work, and you didn't even know it happened." My father finally spoke. "Maya, if we'd known." "You did know," I interrupted. "You got 4 invitations. You got an email. You got calls and texts. You chose not to know, because knowing would have required you to see me. And you've spent 31 years deciding I'm not worth seeing." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "That's not fair, isn't it?" I asked. "When I won the regional writing competition in 8th grade, you asked me to wait to celebrate because Sienna had a dance recital photo shoot. When I got a full scholarship to BU, you asked me to delay posting about it so Sienna's college decision could trend first. When I got my teaching position, you said congratulations, and then spent an hour talking about Sienna's entry-level marketing job." I paused. "You didn't neglect me loudly. You erased me quietly. And I let you because I thought that was what love looked like." The silence that followed was suffocating. My father looked gutted. Sienna stared at her plate, tears dripping onto the untouched ham. My mother opened her mouth several times, but no sound came out. I stood slowly, picking up my coat from the back of the chair. "I'm not here to punish anyone," I said. "I'm here to stop participating in my own erasure." I looked at Sienna. "You were so afraid of being invisible that you made me disappear." I turned to my parents. "And you let her, because it was easier than having 2 daughters who both needed to be seen." I pulled my coat on. "My book is called The Invisible Daughter. It's about a woman who spends her whole life making herself small to keep her family comfortable. In the end, she realizes she was never the problem. The people who refused to see her were." My mother stood. "Maya, please, don't leave like this." "I'm not leaving like this," I said gently. "I left 3 months ago when none of you showed up. I've been gone this whole time. You just didn't notice." I walked to the door. My father called after me. "We can fix this. We'll read your book. You can read it if you want," I said, turning back. But you can't fix 15 years in one conversation. You can't erase the pattern by showing up now. My mother's voice broke. What do you want from us? I want you to acknowledge that you failed me, I said. Not because you didn't love me, but because you loved Sienna so much louder that I learned to live in silence. And I'm done being silent. Sienna finally looked up, her face streaked with tears. Maya, I'm sorry. I know, I said. But sorry doesn't give me back the launch you stole. Sorry doesn't undo the years of being forgotten. Sorry is just a word you're saying because you got caught. I opened the door. Cold December air rushed in. I'm not cutting you off out of anger, I told them. I'm choosing myself out of necessity. Maybe one day we'll have a different conversation. But tonight, I'm going home to the people who showed up. And I walked out. Marcus was waiting in the car 3 blocks away, exactly where I'd asked him to be. He took one look at my face and pulled me into his arms. I didn't cry, I just breathed. You okay? He asked. I will be, I said. We drove to his parents' house. Helen opened the door and hugged me without asking questions. Robert had saved me a plate. They'd bought 3 copies of my book and left them on the coffee table for guests to see. We are so proud of you, Helen said simply. That night, curled up on their couch with Marcus's family around me, I understood what I'd been missing my entire life. Not perfection, not a family without flaws, just people who chose to see me. People who celebrated my existence instead of tolerating it. People who showed up. 2 weeks later, Sienna sent a long email. It was raw, apologetic, admitting more than I expected. She'd started therapy. She was beginning to understand how our parents' favoritism had trapped her too, made her desperate to maintain the pedestal because she was terrified of losing their love. I read it. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't believe her, but because my healing couldn't wait for hers. My father called every Sunday. Short calls, careful calls. He was trying. I answered some of them. In February, he sent me a package. Inside was my book, dog-eared and annotated in his handwriting. A note said, I'm sorry I missed this. I'm sorry I missed you. It wasn't enough. But it was a start. My mother never called. And the absence of her voice felt less like abandonment and more like clarity. She wasn't capable of seeing me, and I was done shrinking to fit her limited vision. 6 months later, my book got picked up for a second printing. Marcus threw me a party. 20 people came. Writers, students, Helen and Robert, friends who'd been there from the beginning. Halfway through the evening, my father showed up. He stood in the doorway, uncertain, holding a bouquet of flowers. I invited myself, he said quietly. I hope that's okay. I looked at him, this man who'd carved turkey and poured wine and stayed silent for 31 years. It's okay, I said. And I meant it, not because everything was fixed, but because he was trying to show up, even late, even awkwardly. That night, as people laughed and celebrated, I realized something. I'd spent my whole life waiting for my family to see me, and in their refusal, I'd learned to see myself. I'd learned that family isn't about blood. It's about presence. It's about showing up, consistently, imperfectly, but genuinely. It's about people who celebrate you not because you're useful to their narrative, but because they love who you are. My mother never came. Sienna and I exchanged emails occasionally, distant and careful, but I stopped waiting for them to become who I needed. Instead, I built a family from the people who already were. Marcus, Helen and Robert, my students who sent me their own writing. The writers who understood the particular loneliness of creation. These people showed up. And in their showing up, I finally came home. If you've ever been the invisible child, the one who made yourself small so others could shine, know this: your absence will eventually be noticed, your silence will eventually be heard. And the day you stop shrinking to fit their comfort is the day you finally begin to live in your own full dimension. I'm not bitter, I'm free, and that makes all the difference. Tell me where you're watching from. And if any part of this felt like your story, share it below. Sometimes knowing we're not alone in our invisibility is the first step to being seen.